Hello. Today I want to talk about 9 book recommendations that you probably have not heard of, but that you should have heard of. These books are extremely underrated, but I've given them all really high ratings, and I think you should read them. So, let's get into it. The first book on this list is very obviously, if you know me, Manacled by Sin Lin Yu. I've talked about this book so much, so I'm gonna make this quick, okay? But Manacled is actually a fan fiction. It's a Hermione fan fiction, so it's completely free because it's just online for you to read. But it follows the story of Draco and Hermione after the last book in the Harry Potter series, and it reimagines the world as if Harry Potter has died. In fact, most people have died, and Voldemort won. And Voldemort has like started this program similar to The Handmaid's Tale, if you've read that story, where the Muggles are being used as surrogates for Voldemort's followers. Are they called the Death Eaters, or am I mistaking that? It's been a couple months since I read this book, but basically Hermione and Draco get put into that sort of situation, and of course Draco is absolutely horrid to her, and at the beginning we're like, how am I supposed to like this character? Actually, I mean, I know that in the books Draco, we kind of all had a little soft spot for him, but like he is being portrayed as evil at the beginning of the book, so I'm just like, how are we supposed to like him at all? And then you get a section, like about 50% of the middle of the book is a flashback to during the war and right as it ended, and you get to see how Draco and Hermione have a very big past and then go back to the present tense, and there's all these secrets being unveiled. And I know it seems crazy at the beginning and you don't think you're gonna like Draco at all. You're there for Hermione the entire time, but you just don't think you're gonna like Draco. You think he's just an absolutely irredeemable character. But trust me, okay, stick through almost 1,000 pages of this book. It's so long, and you will understand why this is one of my favorite standalones of all time, if not my favorite standalone of all time. It's going to be my favorite book this year by far. I've already said it. It is going to be the best book that I read this year, and I just can't shut up about it. So if you haven't read Manacled, read Manacled, okay? It's going to change your life. The next book is called Dear Ava. So this is a high school romance, and it follows our main character, Ava, who is going to a new school. So this book actually has a lot of triggers of sexual assault in it, so if you can't read about that kind of stuff, completely understand. You can skip to the next chapter in this video if you're not interested in it, but I thought this was very good at representing that and talking us through a main character who's experienced that and is getting over her trauma and is surviving through it, which I really appreciate. She meets this guy named Knox at the new school, and they kind of have this like friends to lovers relationship. They are just so cute, but also she's trying to figure out who SA'd her from a party that she went to, and she's suspicious of a lot of people at the school. Now, I'm not gonna lie, okay, the plot twist in this book wasn't really plot twisting. I had an idea of who I wanted to be like the ultimate villain in this book, like secretly who I thought would come out and be revealed as the guy that we all hate, but it was actually like not as surprising. Basically, like the plot's very guessable is what I'm trying to say. However, this book was still very, very lovely. Like I said, good representation. I liked a lot being in Ava's head and the way that she thinks, and it's a very good story about overcoming trauma, but also the romance aspect of this book was really nice. Knox is just super sweet to her, and also she is not like a super like cowardly damsel character. Even though she has obviously gone through incredibly difficult things, she is very strong, and she just shows that personality a lot through this book. She doesn't let anything stop her. She is growing past it and she is getting through it. So I really enjoyed this book, and I think it's very underrated. So if you want to read just a very nice, wholesome high school romance, although I guess wholesome isn't the right word, so maybe if you just want to read like a good high school romance but with some deep parts of the plot, some underlying like really emotional traumatic stuff in it as well, basically not your just everyday contemporary romance, if you want to read something that packs a punch, this would be a good one to pick up. Next is actually 2 books. So books 1 and 2 of the Boston Underworld series I just recently reread. I read them for the first time in, I want to say 2020 or 2021, but I reread them in June, and I was just reminded about how good these books are. In my opinion, mafia books, which these 2 are mafia books, Boston Underworld, I feel like quite often in mafia books the main character is again like a damsel. Like she is just trying to be saved by a big hot rich mafia boss, and I'm like, give me something, you know? I don't want my main character, like my girl character, to just be weak and limp. Like I want someone who can actually stand up for herself. So that's why I really like these 2 books, because the main characters, like the girl characters, don't let anyone boss them around. So the first book follows Lachlan and Mackenzie. Mackenzie has not a sister, but a friend that's close enough to be a sister who went missing, and so she's trying to find what happened to her, and it's been like a year. She's contacted the feds, but they're not really doing anything about it, and so she decides to go and get a job with the mafia because she thinks that they might have something to do with it, since her sister was working at a club that the mafia owns. But you can't just walk in there and ask for a job. No. So she instead goes to the fight rings, beats up someone from the mafia to get the mafia boss's attention, and then says, I need to work for you, and gets a job. There's actually more to getting a job than that, but she gets the job, and basically she's infiltrating the mafia and she's trying to find out what happened to her sister, but also there is this romance between her and Lachlan, and very spicy, very spunky. She's like, once again, a character that speaks her mind, big personality, is not gonna let anyone walk over her, and I really love that about this book. The second book follows Reaper, who is Lachlan's like second in command, and Sasha, who also works at the club. That one used to be my favorite book in the series. Well, I've only read 3 books in the series and I didn't like the third one very much, which is why I stopped 3 years ago. But while book 2 used to be my #1 favorite, I think book 1 is my #1 favorite now, but they're still 2 pretty original, I think, and fun mafia reads. If you are into that kind of genre, definitely watch trigger warnings on both of these books, but if you want a fun mafia read that like I don't think anyone really talks about, I would pick up these 2 books. Next is Grip by Kennedy Ryan, which also has a prequel novella and a sequel, like full book, but the main one is Grip, so I'll talk about that one in the video. So this follows our main character's Grip, whose real name is Marlon, but he goes by Grip because he's a musician. I'm pretty sure he's a rapper. And then Bristol, who's the girl character, and it is a romance between them, but there's actually a lot more to it than that. I'm pretty sure she becomes his manager, so there's like close proximity. They're working together with his job. But what was interesting about this book is it talks a lot about racism in the music industry, and also like police violence, mixed race couples, being a black person in the music industry because Grip or Marlon is black, and just a lot more depth to the story than just a random like musician manager rom-com, you know what I mean? I think Kennedy Ryan is a brilliant author. She really likes to embed more deeper topics into her book than just a normal, you know, fluffy rom-com. Nothing wrong with those books, but I think Kennedy Ryan can really write more of an emotional impact in her books, and these ones really surprised me because it's just things that I don't see many people writing about, and I really appreciated that Kennedy Ryan could put a voice to these issues. And I think if you're interested in those topics at all, or if you want to read a perspective of those topics, then this would be a good one to pick up. But it also is entertaining and fun and romantic, so it like balances those 2 things really well. Like I said, I read the prequel Flow, which follows Grip and Bristol 8 months before the main book Grip, and that's when they like first met and they had a couple nights together kind of thing. And then 8 months later I think is when she becomes his manager. Been a couple years since I've read them, not gonna lie, so I don't remember everything about these books, and I also didn't read the sequel book, so I don't know what happens in that book. But I do think that the prequel and the book 1 are like so good, and no one talks about them. Kennedy Ryan has a lot of other really popular books that I've read and I do love, but I do think these are underrated and should be talked about more. Next is Fear the Flames by Olivia Rose Darling. I've been following Liv on Instagram for like years now, so when she first published this book I was so excited. As her debut release, and I had like hype for this book and I was excited for it, but when I tell you, this actually blew me out of the water. Like, for a debut author, this is incredible. And I also want to say that since it has been picked up by a traditional publisher, and I think it's getting republished soon, so I read the original version, but I'm probably gonna reread it when it traditionally gets published because I know some things are changed in the new versions. I'll be on the lookout for that. But as far as like the original indie published book, really good. So this is a fantasy book, and it follows our main character Elowen, who is like queen of this secret kingdom, but they are secret, they're running out of food, and they desperately need someone to like pick them up and rejuvenate them. And she's the queen, but she doesn't know what to do, so she decides to create an alliance with the enemy kingdom, and Caden is the commander of that kingdom. And the 2 of them plus 3 other side characters basically go on this huge quest, this huge heist to go and steal this big thing. And I can't really get into specifics because those are spoilers. I think this is one of the books that you really should go into kind of blind, but I love the main characters in this book. The 5 of them are just so fun. The banter together, even the friendship banter, they're just like a really fun little group of people, and I love the adventure that they went on in this book. Also, the romance is fantastic. Elowen and Caden have so much chemistry. I was like feeling it off the pages, and like I said, debut author, but she knows how to write like really well. So I'm incredibly impressed with Liv. I can't wait to see this book traditionally published. I know it's going to be a full series too because the ending was on a cliffhanger, so I'm excited to see what else comes after this story. But if you want just a really fun kind of heist focused but also like magic and dragons fantasy book, I would definitely pick up Fear the Flames. It's incredible and so underhyped, especially when it gets traditionally published. If I can find the date for that, I'll put it somewhere here on the screen. I want to reread it so bad, but if you haven't checked out Olivia, go pick her up. It is so good. Next is Full Tilt by Emma Scott. This This one I think's been out for a while now, but I feel like not many people talk about it anymore, so I wanted to give this more hype. This follows our main character, Casey, who is a rock star musician, and she is very much living that rock star life, okay? Alcohol, drugs, not sleeping, all this stuff, and she is not in a good spot in her life. But her limo driver, Jonah, she like really connects to one night, and they start building a little romance. Now, Jonah is a glass blower, so number one, awesome job, okay? Super cool element of the story is like what he does and the artwork that he makes. But although we start off with this relatively like simple premise, we find out that Jonah is actually terminally ill. Like, he is counting the days left to live, basically. So it's a right person, not enough time trope, and this book is going to take your heart and rip it to shreds. I'm not going to spoil anything about the book, but I am going to tell you that you are going to cry. You are going to cry a lot in this book, and you just have to be ready for that. But I will say the sequel to this book, because there is a sequel book, it kind of repairs everything. It puts your heart back together, and I can't be specific because that would spoil, but just trust me when I say this, you kind of have to read them back to back if you want to be emotionally secure after these books are done. Full Tilt and then the sequel all in. It's just so good. It's just so good. I think I gave the first book 4 stars and the second book 5. Is that correct? Yeah, that's correct. So I really loved these. There are so many like beautiful lines in this book. I wouldn't say it has like beautiful flowy prose writing, but I will say that her writing has an emotional punch to it. So good things to underline, great to annotate. And like I said, if you want a sad book to put you in a mood, but then you want another book to kind of make you feel better afterwards, pick Full Tilt and All In by Emma Scott. It's just amazing and very underhyped. No one talks about these anymore, and I'm like, they're so good. So these books, you should read them. On kind of the sad book train, let's talk about Stay With Me by Nicole Fiorina. Now, this is actually a trilogy. I read books 1 and 2, loved them, and then DNF'd book 3. So we just kind of pretend that book 3 doesn't exist because I don't like it. I think it takes a weird turn. No, but books 1 and 2 are so good. This follows our main character, Mia, who is a self-proclaimed sociopath. What a way to start out a synopsis, I know. Hear me out, okay? So we follow her, and she's going to this school that is attached to like a mental hospital. So it's like a mental hospital and a school together, and she meets this guy named Ollie. And what's interesting about Mia is she feels nothing. She is a sociopath, and she basically has no emotion. And she had a very traumatic past, which is why she's kind of cut off herself from emotions. It's like a self-preservation thing. But what's interesting is she meets this guy named Ollie, who's the exact opposite. He feels everything almost too much. Now, I don't think it's too much, but the people in the book say it's too much. And so they're trying to like tone Ollie down because he just feels everything. He is such a heartwarming, loving, romantic person, but also like platonically, you know what I mean? And they enter a little romance, and their romance is so sweet. It's so heartbreaking, mind you, okay? Like, this book makes me sob. The first one and the second one. They're just so good though. And like, you feel for Ollie and Mia so much because they are both mentally ill, but they are also trying so hard to be there for each other and to support each other. And then they're also in a place where the people that they're surrounded with are not good for them. They're surrounded by people who don't appreciate them, who think that there is something inherently wrong with them, even though they are still at the core just like truly good people. I want nothing but the best for these characters, and also Zeke in this book. They will break your heart to a million pieces and then put it back together again. Mostly put it back together again. This is another one to definitely watch your triggers for, especially for sexual assault, mental illness, things like that. But if you can handle them, these are so good, so emotional, but so good, and so underrated. So pick these up. I'm telling you, you have to. You just have to. Next is The Bronze Horseman, and this is actually a historical romance book that, again, no one talks about. You might be looking at the cover and saying, Sophie, not for me. I understand, okay? However, this 600 pages, written in 2001, questionably covered book was actually really good, in my opinion. I gave it 4 stars. So if you're interested any at all in World War II historicals, this might be a fun one to pick up. Well, not fun. Let me explain. So basically this follows our main character, Tatiana, and she lives in Leningrad in 1941. So basically she's in Russia and Germany is invading. And she meets this guy named Alexander, who I think is like an officer, and it's their romance. So mostly their romance is held in secret because I'm pretty sure that he is either either dating or very much interested in her older sister. Not good, obviously, but this book basically follows a long time period, basically through the entire war and her experience. So like the issue with her sister gets resolved relatively quickly in the grand scheme of things, but going through the other like 600 pages of the book, it follows them and their traumatizingly sad love story. I'm recommending a lot of sad books in this video now that I think about it. Like maybe they're underrated because no one wants to read books that are gonna make them cry. I like to read books occasionally that make me cry. So you know what? If you're on this channel, you subscribe, you want to be here. Unless you haven't subscribed, which you definitely should. Anyway, point being, Bronze Horseman. For some reason, this one did it for me. Like I don't even know, I can't even explain what about this book made me so invested. Maybe I was just really in the mood for World War II historical, but I picked this one up and I like zipped through it. Surprisingly very romantic, even though you wouldn't think it's that crazy, but it's pretty romantic. It's very much ups and downs because like I said, it follows a long period of time, multiple years during the war, so we're here for all of Tatiana's highs and also all of her lows. If you want to read about a realistic historical fiction, which I don't think this is based on a true story at all, but if you want to read about something like that, this was a good one that I enjoyed, so you could possibly pick it up and enjoy it too. I'm putting that out there for you. The last book on this list is See a Ruin by Pam Godwin. This is another book that I recently reread and absolutely loved. I gave this book 5 stars the first time and the second time, and it's just so good. So basically follow our main character Bennett, who is a pirate. So cool. And yes, that's a she is a pirate, even though I feel like most times in fantasies the pirate captain is a guy, but not this time, and she will let everyone that questions her knows that yes, she is a woman in like year 1850 or whatever, and yes, she's a pirate captain and no one can stop her from doing that. And I love characters, female characters specifically, who will not let anyone boss them around. They will do what they want, which is why I love Bennett. Anyway, but Bennett is a pirate captain and she has history with a different pirate captain named Priest. I'm not going to spoil anything, but they have serious history, okay? But they have broken apart, gone their separate ways about 2 years ago, and now he's kind of been chasing her, like not in a creepy way, but basically in that like wherever she goes on his ship, he's been trying to find her, that way he can talk to her and like restore their relationship. Because if it wasn't abundantly clear if they had a romantic relationship before. That is just like one element of the story. Bennett gets captured by the Navy. So she and the other pirates are in the Caribbean, but the British Navy is always looking to capture and hang the pirates. And so she gets captured by this Navy commander named Ashley Cutler. And she has this romantic relationship with Ashley. So it is a love triangle romance. We have Priest, her ex, who is constantly trying to find her and repair things between the two of them. And then we have Ashley, this new guy who is her complete enemy, because he's literally a Royal Navy commander while she is a pirate, but yet she's like feeling things for him anyway. And so it's a love triangle, and the ending is surprising. You may not know where it goes. So this is fantastic. When I read this book, I've read it twice now, I just can't put it down. It's so fast-paced, it's so engaging, it's just really good. How else can you say it? So if you want a really fun, really engaging, super plot heavy, but also like badass, amazing character fantasy book, pick up See a Ruin by Pam Godwin. It is so good. With that being said, let me know in the comments below what is one underrated book that you've read and that you love that you hear no one talking about. If you want to follow me on Goodreads or Storygraph, if you want to see what I'm reading about like in present time, follow me down there. They're both linked down below, along with my personal Instagram, which I think I'm going to be posting more book content on that platform too. I'm sending you guys so much love, and I'm hoping that you find an amazing 5-star book this week. I will see you in 4 days for a super fun reading vlog. I'll also subscribe. Bye!